individual or personal attacks. We have 8 speakers this evening. And the first speaker up is Tom Morris.
I'm here this week to object to a city policy of excluding parking in a series of bond issues, which resulted in a significant loss of publicly accessible green space in City Park. In 1982, the city offered a go bond, which included expansions of both the museum and the Denver Zoo and the aquarium, with no included parking in the bond issue or even parking study. Recently, the city added 60,000 square feet to the museum with no additional parking. The city and the institutions both understand that not including the parking will require additional money and green space, but the political burden of including it in the proposal decreases the odds of it passing in a public vote. Both the museum and zoo have coveted the playing fields adjacent to both institutions for parking. They have been blocked numerous times by the public. The playing fields are ideal for a big Kmart-type parking lot. They are level and flat. Cars could be parked at a very high density and for minimal cost. Unfortunately, the playing fields are the only land in City Park which can provide level playing fields meeting the standards of official field design. The other playing fields in City Park are sloped and teach a useless skill of keeping the ball from rolling downhill. It's not fair to our parks to introduce regional attractions without studying the need for additional parking. It sets up a stark requirement which eliminates parking from the discussion and guarantees its creation eventually to lose green space. Years ago, we could enter every square foot of the 318 acres of City Park. Public access is now to less than 200 acres. My question this week is, why do we have to fight these decisions every time a regional use is proposed for a park? And what are the rules of the fight? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Kimberly Morris.
Thank you, Council and Councilman Couchman, for making this public comment session available. Before I get into my comments, for just a moment, I'd like to ask you to imagine yourself in your backyard, maybe at your kitchen window, and take a look around. Tonight I've come to speak with you about my concern for my well-being and that of my neighbors. You see, I live in a Superfund community. The city plans to undertake a very large project in my community, and I'm concerned for our health. We've been told, don't worry, if we, the agencies or the contractors, come across something concern-worthy, we'll address it. This is not a comforting nor acceptable stance when you're working within a Superfund site and in such close proximity to people's homes. Now, just how close are we talking? The construction crew will be taking down my neighbor's fence during construction. That's pretty close. Think again about sitting in your backyard or looking out your kitchen window. How comfortable would you be with construction crews digging within a contaminated site just feet from your house? The reason for concern? Projections for the Globeville Landing outfall site within the Vasquez Boulevard I-70 Superfund site were grossly underestimated. Where test borings turned up little to no asbestos, the construction company has hauled off more than 80,000 cubic yards of asbestos-laden soil through November of this year. The volume of groundwater treated to date is tenfold what was projected during last September's test. With such significant inaccuracies in testing and planning, how can we trust what we've been told about the limited testing that's been done in a segment of land that lies inside of the 4.5 square mile Vasquez Superfund site, but because of its present land use and the fact that it's capped with asphalt, has never received Superfund designation, again inside of the Superfund site, and has not been fully tested. Why should we feel safe when the risk is so close to home? I'm here to ask you to push the pause button on the Platte to Park Trail project until a full environmental study of the area has been done. And to that end, the segment which sits within the Superfund site should fully be started as the rest of the Superfund site operating units have been. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morse. Maureen Welch.
Good evening. Thank you, council members. My name is Maureen Welch, and I am a full-time volunteer activist and also registered lobbyist across the street at the Capitol. And I also brought my son in 2 dimension tonight, James Welch. He's 10 years old, and he's on the CES waiver with case management by Rocky Mountain Human Services. So I'm here tonight to speak about the contract that is in front of you for a vote this evening. I'm very concerned that, just to make sure that you all see that in 6 months' time, we can envision a new environment for case management and use of these mill levy.
Excuse me, Councilman Brooks, this is an item for the agenda tonight, so.
Yes, so earlier on, thank you. So we're going to have this on an agenda tonight, and part of our new policy and rule is that we don't do it for public comment, so that we have it on record and in front of the audience.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes.
We do not have a public hearing scheduled for that, so there shouldn't be a reason to speak to. Pardon me?
Do we have a public hearing for this?
There's no public hearing, but we normally do not permit public comment on items that are on the agenda.
Excuse me, I called the office today and asked, and they told me that there was a change of policy that was just approved today so that you could speak, because I checked this with the council office before I came down.
Okay, so we're sorry about this. Is there someone in the city council office that checked with the change policy?
Through the chair, Leon Mason, Executive Director of City Council. I'm not aware of the change of policy. I know this was discussed.
Okay.
I don't know.
So why don't you go ahead on and finish? And then
okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to say that the mill levy, I voted for it, Initiative 100, and my intent as a voter was that the money would get to individuals who need the money. And right now the money is mainly going to the overhead at Rocky Mountain Human Services. Nearly half of the funding that is given to Rocky Mountain Human Services is saved for their own programs. And I don't think that's right. That's not person-centered. We want the money to follow the people. We want the individuals who have intellectual disabilities to be able to direct the funding and choose who their providers are, rather than having one person, the executive director at Rocky Mountain Human Services, choose what services are offered. We want to flip the paradigm, and I'm very excited that the SAFE committee decided to go with a 6-month contract, so we have a 6-month window to envision a new future when we have choice of case management, because there will be more than Rocky Mountain Human Services in Denver, and as soon as this summer. So with that change, we also need to change the mill levy to make it person-centered and full of choice, so I can choose where the money goes. I also want to make a point that giving this much money to one individual, one nonprofit, is not a safe thing to do, and it doesn't put you in a good negotiating position as a council. I went and saw the great new movie called The Darkest Hour at the Esquire, the Chez Artistes the other night, and one thing that Churchill said in that movie was, you cannot negotiate with a tiger when your head is in its mouth. And I think that's the situation that we're in here with City Council. We've become so beholden to one organization, Rocky Mountain Human Services, doing all the distribution of this money, that there is no negotiating left. So in the next 6 months, I look forward to working with City Council to envision a new person-centered way to integrate this money into the community, so that no longer do we need any contract with any one provider, but the individuals elect where their money goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Cashman, did you want to jump in and say?
No, I just appreciate your allowing me.
Okay. Councilman Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, the rule is that we don't take comment during during this session on anything that has a scheduled required hearing or a courtesy hearing. This isn't up for a courtesy hearing. So people can comment on what's on the agenda that is not up for hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Ms. Welsh. Christine O'Connor.
My name is Christine O'Connor. I'm an unregistered lobbyist trying to get council to get off your butts and start running the city. And it's a big, big task. I couldn't print because we lost power, but I have a whole bunch of suggestions. But in light of what just happened, I'm going to switch gears. I know I can't talk about 1396, Park Hill acquisition, because it's on the agenda. Councilman Flynn said he's going to call it out. But just think about this process. I'm here. I'd love to talk about 1395. I'd love to have a public hearing on 1395 on the SEMA contract because I believe you are bootstrapping the Park Hill Golf Course in on that contract because you're saying, oh my goodness, we have efficiencies. You don't have any efficiencies. There's separate projects in the Platte Park Hill project. That is baloney, and it was asked about, but you are willing to accept it. That is being bootstrapped, and it's not ready. 1395 I'd like to speak on, but because of this process, I'm speaking before I know if anyone's going to call it out for a public hearing. So your process is almost impossible to follow. I can't speak at a council committee hearing unless I ask permission of the chair to speak about it. I can't know everything that happens after the council committee because the mayor's lobbyists, Sky, her team, are in there saying if you ask a question and they don't want the answer or they don't know the answer, like Leslie Thomas didn't know how to answer Robin about how much has been spent on Platte Park Hill. So you defer. You guys just sit back and say, well, I'll take that answer offline, which takes the public out of the process, which with the one exception of Kendra allowing us to get something that was a reply, I haven't seen any of you step up and say, all of this has to go to the public. So we're out of the loop. So I guess I'm going to try writing another letter with some suggestions. But frankly, I wrote many, many letters during the Platte Park Hill, and they went in a bottomless hole. Nobody responded. Nobody said, why don't you come meet with us? Why don't we put you on the agenda? Now I hear you at the Finance Committee asking questions that should have been asked last year that we had raised. But there's no chance for the public who does know something about this and will be affected to be an active participant. So I'm hoping somebody will call out 1395 as well for a hearing. That would be my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Janet Peter.
My name is Janet Fetter. Good evening, council members, and thank you especially Councilman Cashman for this opportunity to speak before you regarding my concerns about impending construction in the Superfund site underneath the Cole neighborhood where I reside. I've lived in Cole since 2004, a handful of blocks west from where my father was born and raised, and as many north from where my grandmother was born and raised. I bothered to contextualize my residency so that you can know something about who I am and what is my stake in the matters of my community. The home in which I now reside is the last house on Gilpin Street, adjacent within 2 feet of the proposed 39th Avenue Greenway open channel. As we all know, living on this Superfund site is not an issue as long as what's underground isn't disturbed. I've attended several years' worth of meetings, community focus groups, etc., and I understand that the current plan is for air quality monitoring to be implemented along the path of construction in order to alert if contamination is released from the extensive digging and soil removal as this project requires. Now, while I'm faculty at 2 universities and have achieved something of an international reputation for my contributions to modern music, I'm also the first to acknowledge that I am no expert when it comes to matters of safe standards for things like air. However, it would seem that living 2 feet away from a construction site, if air quality is determined to be hazardous, let's say on a Friday, where does that leave me living 2 feet away until the powers that be do something that they haven't said what to mitigate that toxicity? I would think a project with a budget of over $78 million could do better to foresee and forestall danger rather than vague and vaguely patronizing assurances that the humans and other living things in my community will be kept safe. Lastly, this project places me and my community in the path of potential flooding, where no flooding has previously existed ever. We are being used to solve current and potential problems that exist elsewhere. So I've purchased flood insurance. It costs $500 a year and insures my home to the FEMA maximum of $250,000, well below half the value of my home. I have acquired increased insurance on my home, built in 1896 to the allowable limit in the event of collapse, which is a not unlikely scenario, considering the months of ground shaking about to happen right next to it. My expressed concerns to the city have been met with crickets. With such an extensive and expensive project, again, the price tag going in is just over $78 million. One would think better care could be taken before Earth is moved, yet all I see around me, from the Globeville landing outfall to City Park to signs of I-70, is forward momentum even in the face of questionable engineering, absence of completed environmental studies, and ongoing lawsuits, one of which I myself am a plaintiff. Friends, what is going on here? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vetter. Trina Moya.
Hello, my name is Trina Moya. I am a resident of Cole, and just like to clarify, I do sit on the board of the Cole Neighborhood Association, but my comments are my own and do not necessarily represent my fellow board members. I'm here because I'm concerned about potential environmental hazards that may be exposed when construction of the 39th Avenue Greenway on the north end of Cole begins. I recently learned that environmental testing or drilling was scheduled to take place last week at 5 different properties along 39th Avenue, but as history has shown us, we cannot trust what these select drillings may or may not reveal. The CDPHE claimed that testing at the Asarco site showed nothing of concern. However, when the Superfund site cleanup of the Cole neighborhood took place, the contaminated soils removed from residential yards was taken over to the Asarco site, and global residents won a lawsuit against Asarco for contamination many years ago. Also, the borings done in the Globeville landing outfall showed little or to no asbestos, yet as Ms. Morse already pointed out, more than 80,000 cubic yards of asbestos have been removed from the area as of last month. How can residents rely on the 39th Avenue testing based on this history? A comprehensive environmental study was not done along 39th Avenue, and we therefore have no way of knowing what risks lie beneath the surface. It's irresponsible to begin digging before we do, and I ask that City Council make the health and safety of Cole residents a priority and know for certain what has been paved over in the Superfund site before putting us at risk by digging it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moya. Chairman Sekou.